Hi, it's State Senator Terri Bonoff talking to you from the Capitol. Well, the session is finally done, and frankly, it was pretty challenging to get done when all is said and done. But we did it. We came to agreement. People thought that because we had both the same party in the House, the Senate, and the governor, that it would be easier. But in fact, that really was not the case. We were negotiating up until the bitter end over things that both sides cared about, and we were able to come to an agreement, but we ended at exactly 12 o'clock with not a minute to spare. So the most important thing we said we were going to do this session was to put together a budget that was structurally sound and no longer had deficits going into what we call the out years. We did accomplish that, but there are 67 senators and double that in the House, and we each have our idea around how we should have accomplished that goal. And we all certainly don't get what we want in that regard. So I have told you many times that I really thought that we ought to come this year, just coming out of the recession, with a small increase investments in targeted things such as early childhood and higher education, of which of course I'm proud to be chair, but I would have said that whether I was chair or not. And then we should make sure to solve the deficit. At the end of the day, the majority of legislators came up with a package that was more significant than that. That was really came to be about a $2.1 billion increased investments. And I will say that that budget does reflect my values. The overall commitment of the budget puts more money not just into early childhood and into higher education, but also significant investment into K-12, as well as some economic development opportunities, such as making sure we have the Destination Mayo Medical Center, which is so critical for our future and for making sure that we continue to be a leader in this nation and around the world in medical research. That's also why I was proud to support the increased investment for the University of Minnesota, whereby we insist that some of the money we invest does go towards their service mission, which includes service mission and research mission, which includes investing in life-saving research. So those investments coming together, coupled with the way the majority of legislators chose to raise their revenue, put together a tax bill that at the end of the day I didn't support and I voted against. I have been a strong proponent of overall tax reform, which in my mind includes broadening the sales tax. This tax bill took a different approach. It was consistent with Governor Dayton's remarks since he ran for governor, which was he really believed that we ought to enact a fourth tier and raise income taxes. I have been a proponent of the other, believing that we have some of the higher income taxes compared to other states, and therefore would have preferred the broadening of the base of the sales tax. And so the tax bill is the one place where we do get to register whether we're for or against, and so that's why I voted against that. I wanted to take this time to just share a few of the personal things that I've been working on, and I've told you about over the course of the session, but just to summarize, one of the things that I've been most pleased with is our bill surrounding the Hollydale issue. That was, discovered right in the early days of session, coming off the campaign, that the power company had planned to put these big metal poles in our community, really in people's backyards. And so when it seemed like that was going to be inevitable, we took a legislative tack to it, and we introduced legislation that said, no, you can't do that unless you can prove beyond a reasonable doubt that there's no other cost-effective alternative. And we know, in fact, that there really is, because there was an approach identified that included having underground power lines feeding into a substation. And so we believe by passing this legislation, and I want to thank Representative Anderson and Representative Benson, because they have to pass it in the House just like we do in the Senate in order to make it law. And together we move forward that legislation so that I am hopeful that our community is now protected with regard to that issue. But I'm sure we'll all keep vigilant as we watch it. Another personal thing that I worked on was the expansion of St. David's School. That would have been a bonding project whereby we used state dollars to match corporate donations so that we could expand our offering to preschool, really special needs, mental health in particular, as well as other special needs of youngsters. And St. David's has been a jewel in our community, and so being able to leverage public-private dollars and make a small investment will yield great results. But as most of you probably know by now, we didn't get a bonding bill. So the governor was supportive, the House and the Senate, but at the end of the day, one of the biggest disappointments was we didn't have a big bonding bill. There was not agreement in the House to move in that direction. That's where it starts, that's where it ends, and so there was little we could do in the Senate other than at the very final hours, we were able to send the House a very small bonding bill that says all we were going to do with our bonding dollars this year was to make sure we continued on our project to restore the Capitol. So for those of you who say, why are you focused on where you work, the Capitol? It's not really like that. This is a state asset and it's crumbling. You know, you'll literally see little pieces of rock fall from the ceiling or see water leaking as you're going through the tunnel. And it's, you know, I would say it's reckless not to make sure that we take care of this very important treasure. So we felt strongly in the Senate. We sent over a capital bonding bill that was supported by each and every legislator, and the House still balked at it because they wanted to have their bill, but at the end of the day, we did prevail and that passed. So that's something I'm pleased about. I have talked before about my granny scam bill, but I am proud that we were able to accomplish that, protecting our most vulnerable seniors from really criminals who prey upon them in ways that none of us appreciate and they shouldn't be proud of. The cattails bill. I now represent the city of Woodland, and within the city of Woodland there's this lake called Shaver's Lake that has really become overrun with cattails, and they have not been able to get a permit from the DNR to get rid of their own cattails. And so we worked with the DNR, both the House and the Senate. We came together and we passed a bill that allows those people in the community to get a permit to take care of their own cattails. And it seems so silly, but I'll tell you, there was another legislator who wanted to do the same thing for a lake in Loring Park, and they weren't allowed to do that. And so these things aren't easy when you're asking, you know, agencies to make exceptions. And so we were pleased and proud that we were able to deliver that to the folks in Woodland. There was also, in the legacy bill, some money put aside for aquatic invasive species prevention. And this was really with Lake Minnetonka in mind. And that was something that I worked on. Right now, this provision could be vetoed by the governor. I've been hearing on the radio that there are people who are opposed to that because it didn't come out of the citizen-led group that decided where those legacy dollars were going to be spent. But I am really hoping the governor does not veto that because, you know, Lake Minnetonka in particular is really battling that issue, and I'm very much for using our legacy dollars, which are tax dollars, to be able to take care of the needs in our own communities, and I think that's money well spent. We have the Film and TV Board bill that was passed, and I think you'll see the benefit of this when you see the movies that are going to be coming to the Twin Cities to be filmed, and you see the economic activity around filming those productions. We've already heard of a pretty big one that will be coming in the next 6 months based on passing this legislation. It's secret for now, but stay watching and you'll see. And then finally, last year, Minnesotans said no to the voter ID constitutional amendment. But one of the things I told the people in my community is that I was going to work for a different solution, a strong voter verification solution using the electronic poll book technology. Minnetonka had been using that in our polling places for the last few years, and so I really worked with a group of various election officials to put forward an e-polling pilot so that we could be prepared to expand that on a statewide basis. And I want to say a special thanks to the people of Minnetonka who helped make that happen. In particular, David Maeda, who works for the city of Minnetonka, came week after week down to the Capitol to help us craft that legislation. And that legislation did pass, and so I look forward to being able to enact the kind of voter verification legislation that really makes sense in today's times. So I know that was a lot to hear about and hard to watch such a long wrap up, but do read the update. The way that I've done this week's update is I've given you more information than you'll ever want to know about every area that we deal with at the state capitol, and I've done that so that you can have it as a reference. Anytime you have a question about what we did get done, what we didn't get done, you can just go through it at your leisure, picking out the areas of interest and see what happened. And finally, just a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart. It's been an honor and a privilege to represent you, and I always say I have the best, most engaged constituents of anyone in the state, and of course I'm not biased. So have a great summer, wishing you happy and healthy days.